Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to R Squared Technology. I'm your host, Ryan, and let's get ready to SolidWorks. Today's video is part 3 of modeling the housing from Chapter 2 of the Beginner's Guide to SolidWorks 2022, Level 1. As always, I will leave a link in the description below where you can pick the book up to follow along, as well as a link to the previous video to get you to this point. So with that, grab a mouse, put a seatbelt on, grab a Monster energy drink, and let's get started. Welcome to the Hole Wizard. Not to be confused with the Wizard of Oz, but the Hole Wizard does some pretty wizard things, if you will. So, starting on page 79, section 2.45, we're going to use this new feature. First, let's bring our part into the normal to position for where we're going to put the hole. It's going to be the face of our front boss. So I'll select that face and hit Control 8 to bring it normal to, hit Escape to clear out, hit it a couple times. And then we'll want to make sure that we're in the Features tab here, top left. And then a little bit over the right here is the Hole Wizard. Let's click that to open the properties over here on the left. And then under the hole type, we're going to choose a straight tap. Under standard, we're going to want to make sure that ANSI inch is selected. And then under type, we're going to want to make sure that tap hole is selected. Then moving down to hole specifications, we want to choose a 1/4-20. So you may have to scroll up or down depending on where you're at the list and find 1/4-20. And then from here, we want to go to our end condition, choosing up to next. And then down in our options, we want to choose cosmetic thread with threaded callout selected, and then make sure that near side countersink and far side countersink are not selected. And now from here, we will go into page 80 and /81 on this, which is the positioning of where this hole is going to be. So come up here to the top left to the Positions tab, click on it, and then we'll now click the front face of our front boss. And notice how it's shaded blue and we get this little yellow semi-shaded circle partial preview. So what I'm going to do is zoom it in a little bit with the center scroll wheel of the mouse, scrolling it towards me of course. We're then actually going to do some relations to define this circle. Because we could arguably free float it within this face here, but we want to be a little bit more precise. So come up here to the top, choose the center line, and then we're going to choose this external or this outer diameter midpoint here, and then the inner diameter midpoint here. And then I will right click and hit select, and then I will come back up to the top left here and choose the point again, and that way I get my partial preview back. And now I'm going to hover over my center line, construction line, synonymous there, and I want to choose the midpoint and make sure I'm coincident with that. I will then click, and then I will drag out, and that's going to take us now to page 82. Now, had you not, say you clicked up here somewhere, the top of page 82 will show you how to snap the relations for that. However, since I already did that, we're good to go. And I'm actually going to choose over here on the left and click OK. So now, still on page 82, we're going to bring threads into view. So what do I mean? I'm zooming out. I'm going to bring this into position. I'm going to click in the graphics area. So you're going to notice there are no threads right now within that circle, no visual thread anyway. So how do we add that? Well, here in the middle of page 82 and through, we'll come over here to the left in the features tree and hover over the annotations folder. We're going to right click and then select details. And then over here under the annotations property, we want to check shaded cosmetic threads. And for this, we will click Apply and OK. And there the threads are. And now that brings us to section 2.47 on page 83. What's that? We just realized something! Section 2.47, 83, we realize that we have two walls that are too thick. So we're going to change that. So first I'm going to press the space bar and bring the top view normal to. And going from page 83, we're going to go through 84 and on to 85, section 2.48, where we're going to do our first approach in modifying some dimensions for our top cut feature. So over here on the left, we're going to select our top cut by clicking on it once, and then we're presented with two options. I got two per, yeah, just kidding. But there is an edit feature option and edit sketch. Now we don't want to edit the feature itself, like the cut depth per se. We want to edit the dimensions of the sketch that pertains to its foundation. So with that, we're going to select edit sketch. And I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so we have a view of both dimensions. Let me fix that here a little bit, tidy it up. So what I want you to pay attention to is this line here and this line here when I make the changes to the dimensions. So I'll hover over the number, double click, enter 0.25, enter, and just like that the line moved up, made it thinner. Come down here, do the same thing, double click on it, 0.25, enter. Line moved down here, thinner. Now, section 2.49, there are two things to keep in mind. We can now exit out of the sketch, up here, top left, or we can rebuild the sketch, which is this little traffic light icon up here in the top middle. But for this particular situation, I'm just going to exit the sketch, and then in the next example, I'm going to show you where rebuild may come in handy. So we'll simply exit the sketch, Control S, save often, and now I'm going to tilt the model a little bit for a better view here. And now we're going to move on to page 86, and this is option number 2 of how we can change those dimensions that we just dealt with. So we can now, instead of going over here into the features tree, we can click on this internal face, which is part of our top cut feature, and you'll notice that the dimensions reappeared. Now in the book, the dimensions show up, they are in the part like such. Something of like this view here. So that's why me personally, I like to make sure my dimensions drag out away from the model a little bit. If it helps you that they're directly over so you know what you're changing and manipulating, it might be useful. But I know for a fact that it's this dimension here that I want to modify. So I will hover over it, double click again, and I'm going to make it even thinner. So 0.125, enter. And then I'm going to come up here top left and click the close dialog. Now check this out. Over here in the feature tree next to the top cut feature, there's that traffic signal icon. So I'm going to zoom in on the model, watch this wall here. I'm going to come up here and click on the rebuild, the traffic signal, which is also hotkey Control B. And just like that, it actively updated that wall to be thinner. So that's where rebuild is going to come in handy. If you make modifications to a dimension somewhere within your part and its features, sometimes it may not look like it changed. It's a good idea to use the rebuild command up here. So with that, we're going to now go to the third option of changing the dimension. So I'll click on the internal face again, and I'm going to zoom in now so you can see something here. Under that same dimension, you'll notice this little blue ball here. Now if I hover over it and I click and still holding, drag over to the right, so now that I'm on that little measuring ruler that we see here, that way I can drag in precise increments that we set, which you would have noticed from the Instant 3D we did in a prior video. So as I move this, it's ticking in precise increments of a dimension change. So I'm going to drag it until I hit 0.25 and then let go. Now notice, again, this is not my preference because the precision may not be there. Let go, verify it's 0.25, and just like that. Now this option, depending on the computer hardware you have, it's updating that wall thickness in real time. So now that we're have changed it, I'll do it again, showing this wall thickness. Hover over the blue ball, click, drag to the right, and notice how the wall thickness is changing. Super thick. Nice. But we want this at 0.25. And then I'll hit escape, Control S, and now we will move on to page 87, section 2.5. What's this? A new feature has entered the chat, and it goes by the name Circular Pattern. So starting on section 2.5, page 87, the first thing we're going to do is press the space bar and bring our model isometric. And then we're going to come up here to the top left in the Features tab, and we're going to come over here to the right where you see Linear Pattern, and then we're going to choose the drop-down arrow to choose a circular pattern. Now with that, the Circular Pattern Properties opens up, and the first thing we're going to want to do is click in the Pattern Axis box here, and there are now a couple of different selection choices we can make. We can, on page 87, choose this edge here, this edge here, this edge here, this face here, this edge here, this edge here, this face here, this edge here, and so on and so forth, mirrored. And why is that? Because all of these edges and or faces have the same center axis as this threaded hole that we want to pattern around this flange here. But I'm going to move on over to page 88, where we do a different choice, which is an axis itself. So up here in the graphics view, just in the middle, I'm going to go to the Hide Show Items, and I'm going to choose the View Temporary Axis. Now I'm going to click in the graphics view, and I'm going to zoom in a bit and tilt it so you can get a better view of this. This axis right here is what I'm referring to. Now there are multiple axes wherever there's a radius that lies. So you could choose this one here, but again, it's going to have an undesired result. However, this axis here is the center of this flange and is going to give us an even distribution around this flange. So I'm going to choose that. And then now we're on section 2.52 on page 88. We're going to make some changes here in the properties. First, we want to make sure that we have it set to equal spacing here, 360 degrees, and then you want to change your instant count to 6, so 6 enter, and then we're going to select the Features to Pattern box, and then from here we're going to go into the little right nav arrow in the graphics view, click to choose the flyout menu, and then down here we're going to select the feature 1/4-20 tapped hole. And now we have a partial preview about what it's going to do. Now you could arguably, let's just for a moment delete this, you could arguably select the feature by clicking on it this way. Now if you have trouble, there's a slick little feature on page 89 where you can hit G to magnify, and now with this circle of magnification I can zoom in and out and isolate that specific area to make a precise selection without moving the entire model. I can also hit escape to close out of that. So two different ways to get to it. Sometimes clicking on a particular feature within the model itself might be easier, but to be more precise and know for sure of what you're selecting, you can always choose the flyout and feature tree there. So with that, we are now on page 89, section 2.53, which is going to end this command and start into the mirror command. So first we're going to come up here, top left, close out, and something I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the space bar, bring it back isometric so you can see this. Then I'm going to hide the temporary axis. I want them out of the way unless I absolutely need them, because again, it just makes everything really busy. We want everything very clean and organized and easy to understand what we're doing. Alrighty then, one last feature to do here to wrap things up, and that's going to be the good old mirror command, which we've covered in previous videos. So, to start, we need our mirror plane, because we're going to take these threaded holes on this flange and we're going to throw them on this side like, wow, like some magic, like sprinkling salt on it. So you'll want to choose the front plane. I'm going to hit the space bar to bring it back isometric so we have our selection view available, see what's going on. And then up here in the Features tab, I'm going to come over to the right and choose Mirror. And then I'm going to click in the Features to Mirror box. And then in the Graphics area in the Flyout menu, I'm going to choose Circular Pattern. And look at this partial preview we're getting here. And now I'll click OK to finish it out. And just like that, we have threaded holes on both flanges. So I'm going to hit the space bar, go isometric, and that finishes on page 90, just before section 2.54. And that's where we will pick it up in our next video. And one final last thing we're going to do to finish off here is over here in our features tree, right click on our annotations folder, click in details, and unselect shaded cosmetic thread, hit apply, and click OK. And as always, Control S. Thank you for watching, and I will see you guys next time.